The morning sun cast long shadows across the rugged terrain of Yellowstone National Park as David Walker adjusted his camera lens, capturing the steam rising from nearby geothermal vents. As a renowned wildlife photographer, he had documented nature's wonders across the globe, but something about this expedition felt different. Perhaps it was the unique combination of personalities in his team, or maybe it was the peculiar atmospheric pressure that had been building over the past few days. Sarah Bennett, the team's biologist, crouched nearby, meticulously documenting tracks in her weathered notebook. Her expertise in endangered species had brought her face-to-face with some of the rarest creatures on Earth, but Yellowstone's ecosystem held secrets that even she couldn't explain. Lucas Harris, the adventure writer seeking inspiration for his next bestseller, stood at the edge of a cliff, his keen eyes scanning the vast landscape below. Emily Carter, their experienced mountaineer, was already plotting possible routes through the challenging terrain ahead, while Jake Thompson, their mechanic and off-road specialist, performed last-minute checks on their vehicles. The team had spent months planning this expedition into the park's most remote regions, each member driven by their own personal quest for discovery. The barometric pressure readings are unusual for this time of year, Sarah announced, frowning at her instruments. I've never seen patterns quite like these in my previous expeditions. David lowered his camera, intrigued. Could it affect the wildlife behavior? Potentially, she replied, her voice tinged with concern. Animals are far more sensitive to these changes than we are. As if on cue, a distant wolf howl echoed across the valley, followed by an unusual silence. The team exchanged glances, sensing something shift in the atmosphere around them. Even the steam from the geothermal vents seemed to move differently, creating ethereal patterns in the crisp morning air. Jake approached the group, wiping his hands on a rag. We should get moving soon. The weather satellite showed some concerning patterns developing to the west. The sooner we reach our first checkpoint, the better. They loaded their equipment into the vehicles, each lost in their own thoughts about what lay ahead. The expedition's goal was to document undiscovered aspects of Yellowstone's ecosystem, but none of them could shake the feeling that they were about to stumble upon something far more significant. As they ventured deeper into the park's remote regions, the landscape began to change subtly. Emily noticed unusual rock formations that didn't match any geological pattern she'd studied, while Lucas found himself scribbling notes about the strange play of light through the trees. By mid-afternoon, they had reached a section of the park that felt virtually untouched by human presence. The wildlife around them behaved in unexpected ways, birds flying in unusual patterns, elk herds moving with unexpected purpose, even the insects seemed to be following some hidden directive. Look at this, Sarah called out, pointing to a series of markings on an ancient tree trunk. The symbols appeared to be some form of primitive writing, but they didn't match any known Native American patterns from the region. David photographed them meticulously, while Lucas sketched them in his notebook. As the sun began to set, casting an otherworldly glow across the landscape, Jake's voice broke through their concentrated documentation. We've got a problem, he announced, his usual confident tone wavering slightly. The engines are behaving strangely. All of them. It's like something's interfering with their electrical systems. The team gathered around the vehicles, watching as their equipment began to malfunction one piece at a time. Compasses spun erratically, GPS devices displayed impossible coordinates, and their satellite phones failed to connect. As darkness approached, they found themselves isolated in one of the most remote sections of Yellowstone, surrounded by inexplicable phenomena and growing uncertainty. A cool wind swept through the valley, carrying with it the sound of distant movement through the undergrowth. Something was watching them from the shadows of the ancient forest, something that seemed to understand far more about their presence than they did themselves. As they set up camp for the night, each member of the team couldn't shake the feeling that they had crossed an invisible threshold into a part of Yellowstone that few had ever truly seen, or perhaps remembered. If this story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Tell us which city you're watching from. Let's continue. The first rays of dawn revealed an unsettling sight, massive, unidentifiable footprints circling their campsite. David's trained eye immediately noticed that they didn't match any known species in Yellowstone. Sarah meticulously photographed and measured them, her scientific skepticism wrestling with what she was seeing. "These prints, they're unlike anything I've encountered in my research," she muttered, comparing them to her extensive database of wildlife tracks. "The stride pattern suggests a quadruped, but the depth and width indicate something much larger than any known predator in North America." Lucas watched her work, his writer's imagination racing with possibilities. "Could it be some undocumented species?" he suggested, already mentally composing chapters for his book. The mysterious tracks had reignited his creative spark, though the reality of their situation sent chills down his spine. Emily, who had been scouting the perimeter, returned with more concerning news. "The landscapes changed overnight," she reported, pointing toward the western horizon. "Those rock formations weren't there yesterday, and I'm seeing steam vents where there were none before." Jake emerged from under one of the vehicles, his face streaked with grease and confusion. "Whatever's affecting our engines is getting worse," he announced. "It's like they're being drained of power, but I can't find any mechanical cause. Even our backup generators are failing." As the team debated their next move, a haunting howl echoed through the valley, not the familiar call of a wolf, but something deeper, more resonant. The sound seemed to reverberate through their bones, and the surrounding wildlife fell into an unnatural silence. Suddenly, through the morning mist, a magnificent shepherd dog appeared. Its thick coat shimmered with an almost ethereal quality, and its eyes held an intelligence that seemed beyond natural. The animal stood motionless, studying the group with an intensity that made them question whether they were looking at an ordinary dog at all. Sarah reached for her camera, but the device refused to power on. "Everything electronic is dead," she whispered, her voice mixing with the steam rising from nearby vents. The dog took a few steps forward, then turned to look back at them, clearly indicating a direction. "I know this sounds crazy," Emily began, "but I think it wants us to follow it." A distant rumble drew their attention to the horizon, where dark clouds were gathering with unnatural speed. The air grew heavy with an electric charge that made their hair stand on end. The dog barked once, a sound that carried an almost verbal quality, and began moving along a nearly invisible path. With their equipment failing and no clear way to call for help, the team faced a critical decision. The dog's presence offered a strange comfort in the midst of their increasingly bizarre situation. Despite their scientific backgrounds and natural skepticism, something told them this animal was their best chance at understanding what was happening. "We're not going to find answers standing here," David decided, shouldering his now useless camera equipment. "And whatever's affecting our electronics could be dangerous if it gets worse." As they followed their mysterious guide, the team began to notice other oddities in their surroundings. Ancient symbols, similar to those they'd seen the day before, appeared with increasing frequency on rocks and trees. The vegetation changed subtly, revealing species that Sarah swore shouldn't exist in this ecosystem. The dog led them through passages that seemed to defy the park's known geography, moving with purposeful certainty. Each time they hesitated, it would stop and wait, those intelligent eyes seeming to convey reassurance. The air grew thicker with geothermal steam, and the ground beneath their feet thrummed with an energy none of them could explain. Lucas pulled out his notebook, one of their few remaining functional tools, and frantically documented everything he could. "If we make it out of here," he murmured, "this story will change everything we think we know about Yellowstone." What none of them realized yet was that their mysterious canine guide was leading them not just through physical space, but toward a discovery that would challenge their understanding of reality itself. The true secrets of Yellowstone were about to reveal themselves, and nothing in their scientific training had prepared them for what lay ahead. The mysterious shepherd led them through an increasingly bizarre landscape. The familiar Yellowstone terrain gradually transformed into something that seemed to exist outside of their known reality. Geothermal vents created intricate patterns of steam that moved against the wind, forming what looked like ancient symbols in the air. Sarah's scientific mind raced as she observed unprecedented animal behavior around them. Creatures that normally avoided each other moved in harmony, wolves walking alongside elk, bears peacefully passing by deer. "This defies everything we know about natural predator-prey relationships," she whispered, her voice filled with equal parts wonder and apprehension. Emily noticed that the rock formations were becoming more organized, less natural. "These stones," she called out, running her hand along a smooth surface. "They're positioned too perfectly to be random. Look at how they align with the sunrise." The structures seemed to pulse with a faint, barely perceptible energy that tingled against their skin. The shepherd dog stopped abruptly at the entrance of a narrow canyon. The walls were covered in elaborate markings that made the previous symbols they'd encountered seem primitive in comparison. David pulled out his analog camera, the only piece of photography equipment still functioning, and began documenting everything. "These markings," Lucas observed, furiously sketching in his notebook, "they're telling a story. Look at how they flow into each other." He traced the patterns with his finger, feeling a slight vibration emanating from the rock itself. "It's about guardians, protectors of some kind. And something hidden beneath Yellowstone." Jake, who had been unusually quiet, pointed to a series of mechanical-looking diagrams etched into the stone. These look like energy patterns. Similar to what's affecting our equipment, but far more complex. It's like someone left instructions, or a warning." The dog barked softly, drawing their attention to a particular section of the wall. Sarah gasped as she recognized shapes in the ancient artwork, perfect representations of the strange footprints they'd found around their camp. But these images showed something more, creatures that seemed to shift between animal and energy forms, and symbols that appeared to describe doorways or portals. "This can't be coincidence," David muttered, adjusting his camera lens. "Everything that's happened since we arrived, it's all connected to whatever story these walls are telling." A low rumble echoed through the canyon, and the ground beneath their feet trembled slightly. The dog's ears perked up, and it turned to look deeper into the passage. The steam vents around them began to pulse in a rhythmic pattern, creating an almost musical harmony that resonated with the vibrations in the rock. Emily discovered a small opening partially hidden behind a cascade of ancient vines. "There's something here," she called out, carefully pulling the vegetation aside. The gap revealed a narrow tunnel, its walls smoothed by what appeared to be both natural forces and deliberate craftsmanship. The shepherd led them into the tunnel without hesitation. The air inside was surprisingly fresh, moving in currents that seemed to defy normal airflow patterns. As they ventured deeper, bioluminescent organisms lined the walls, providing natural illumination that responded to their presence. "These species are impossible," Sarah breathed, examining the glowing life forms. "They don't match any known biological classification." The organisms pulsed with colors that shifted in response to their proximity, creating waves of light that traveled along the tunnel walls. The passage gradually widened into a chamber that stopped them in their tracks. The space was perfectly circular, its ceiling disappearing into darkness above. But it was what lay at the center that rendered them speechless, a structure that seemed to blend organic and geometric forms in ways that challenged their understanding of physical reality. The shepherd dog sat calmly beside the structure, its eyes reflecting the bioluminescent light with an almost supernatural intensity. As the team stood there, trying to process what they were seeing, they began to understand that they had stumbled upon something far more significant than a simple scientific expedition. They were about to uncover a truth about Yellowstone that had remained hidden for millennia, guarded by forces they were only beginning to comprehend. In the heart of the mysterious chamber, the central structure began to respond to their presence. Soft pulses of light emanated from within, synchronized with the bioluminescent organisms along the walls. The shepherd dog approached the structure, its paws leaving slight traces of light with each step. "It's some kind of ancient monitoring station," Jake suggested, his mechanical expertise finding familiar patterns in the seemingly alien design. "Look at how these curves intersect. They're like circuit pathways, but organic." Sarah pulled out her journal, documenting the unprecedented fusion of biological and geometric elements. "These patterns match the electromagnetic anomalies we've been experiencing. Whatever this place is, it's been affecting the entire region." David's analog camera captured the scene as the dog pressed its nose against a specific point on the structure. A soft humming filled the chamber, and portions of the walls became transparent, revealing a network of crystalline veins running through the surrounding rock. These veins, Emily observed, her climbing experience lending insight to the geological anomaly, they're not random. They form a grid across the entire park. Yellowstone isn't just sitting on a supervolcano, it's sitting on something far more extraordinary. Lucas traced the patterns in his notebook, his writer's intuition connecting the pieces. The ancient markings we saw, they weren't just telling a story about guardians. They were leaving instructions for finding this place. The shepherd's eyes seemed to glow with an inner light as it moved to a raised platform near the structure. A medallion, partially buried in crystalline growth, caught the shifting lights. Jake carefully extracted it, feeling a subtle vibration against his palm. "This material," he said, examining the medallion, "it's unlike anything I've ever seen. It's warm to the touch and seems to be responding to our presence." The moment Jake lifted the medallion, the chamber's energy shifted. The crystalline veins pulsed with increased intensity, and new symbols appeared on the walls, not carved, but formed by living light that moved and changed as they watched. Sarah's scientific training struggled with what she was witnessing. These symbols, they're showing different versions of Yellowstone throughout history. Look, there are time periods we have no record of, civilizations we never knew existed. The dog barked once, the sound resonating with the chamber's energy. The medallion in Jake's hand grew warmer, and suddenly the air was filled with three-dimensional images, holographic displays formed by the interaction of light and energy. "It's a message," Emily breathed, watching the images form and reform. "The dog, it's not just a guide. It's a guardian, isn't it? Part of whatever force has been protecting this place?" The shepherd's presence seemed to confirm her words, its form momentarily shifting to reveal something more ethereal before returning to its solid appearance. The holographic images began to tell a story of ancient caretakers who had discovered something remarkable beneath Yellowstone's surface, of guardians left to protect this knowledge, and of a power that had to be kept hidden until the right moment in history. David's camera clicked steadily, documenting everything, though they all sensed that no photograph could truly capture what they were witnessing. The medallion's warmth spread up Jake's arm, connecting him to the chamber's energy in a way that made the hair on his neck stand up. As they stood there, absorbing the gravity of their discovery, they began to understand their role in a story far larger than themselves. The shepherd hadn't just led them to safety, it had chosen them for a purpose that had been waiting thousands of years to be fulfilled. The medallion in Jake's hand began to pulse with increasing intensity, its warmth spreading throughout the chamber. The shepherd dog's form flickered again, momentarily revealing its true nature, a being of pure energy taking canine form. The holographic displays surrounding them shifted, focusing on a specific point deep beneath Yellowstone's surface. "It's showing us something specific," Sarah noted, her analytical mind racing to process the information. "These energy patterns, they're identical to the geological anomalies I've been tracking for years, but I never understood their significance until now." The dog approached the central structure again, and this time, its touch triggered a transformation. The floor beneath them became transparent, revealing a vast network of crystalline formations pulsing with living energy. These weren't just random formations, they formed a complex system that appeared to regulate the park's entire ecosystem. "The supervolcano," Emily gasped, recognition dawning on her face. "It's not just a geological formation. It's part of an ancient mechanism, isn't it? A power source of some kind?" The holographic displays confirmed her theory, showing how the ancient caretakers had discovered this natural power source and built upon it, creating a system that maintained balance not just in Yellowstone, but across a much larger region. The shepherd's ancestors had been appointed as guardians, watching and waiting for the right moment to reveal this knowledge. Lucas frantically documented everything in his notebook. The stories about Yellowstone's mysterious properties, the unexplained phenomena, it was all connected to this. The indigenous peoples must have known about it. That's why they considered this land sacred. David's camera captured the moment the medallion's energy synchronized with the chamber's crystals. The resulting resonance created a harmonic frequency that seemed to vibrate through their very beings. The dog's form stabilized, and its eyes met each of them in turn, conveying unspoken knowledge. "The malfunctions in our equipment, Jake realized, examining the medallion more closely. They weren't malfunctions at all. The system was protecting itself, testing us. Everything that led us here was intentional. The chamber's displays shifted again, showing disturbing images of increasing instability in the Earth's natural systems. The ancient mechanism beneath Yellowstone had been maintaining a crucial balance, but that balance was becoming increasingly difficult to maintain in the modern world. Sarah understood first. That's why we're here. The Guardians, they need help. Human help. To adapt the system to the modern world without revealing its existence to those who might misuse it. The shepherd nodded, its movement unmistakably conscious and deliberate. The medallions pulsing synchronized with their heartbeats, creating a connection that transcended normal human awareness. Through this connection, they began to understand the true scope of their discovery and the responsibility that came with it. Emily approached the central structure, drawn by an instinct she couldn't explain. The symbols on the walls, the way they've been changing, they're not just showing us the past. They're showing us what we need to do next. The dog moved to stand beside her, and together they faced the others. The chamber's energy swirled around them, the crystalline veins in the walls pulsing with renewed purpose. They had been chosen, not by chance, but by ancient forces that had watched and waited for the right combination of skills, knowledge, and character. The chamber's energy reached its peak, the crystalline network glowing with unprecedented intensity. The medallion in Jake's hand completed its synchronization, permanently linking their group to Yellowstone's ancient security system. The shepherd's form stabilized into a perfect blend of physical and energy states, representing their bridge between two worlds. The system isn't just protecting Yellowstone, Sarah realized, watching new data stream across the holographic displays. It's maintaining crucial ecological balances across the entire continent. The park is just the hub of something far larger. The ancient mechanism began responding to their presence more directly. Jake's mechanical expertise merged with the system's interface, allowing him to understand its basic operations. Emily's knowledge of the park's geography helped her comprehend the vast network of energy pathways. Sarah's biological insights revealed how the system had been subtly guiding and protecting various species for millennia. David's photographs would serve as their record, proof of what they discovered, though they all understood that some secrets would need to remain hidden. Lucas observed everything with writer's clarity, knowing his role would be to protect these secrets through carefully crafted stories that would seem like fiction to the outside world. "We're not just witnesses anymore," Emily said, touching the central structure. "We're part of its defense now, aren't we?" The shepherd approached each of them in turn, touching its nose to their hands, establishing a permanent connection between them and Yellowstone's hidden heart. The holographic displays showed their vehicles restored, their equipment functional again. The system had finished its evaluation of them and deemed them worthy of its trust. But more importantly, it had shown them their path forward. The ancient caretakers knew this day would come, Lucas noted, closing his notebook. They knew the system would eventually need new guardians who understood both the old ways and the new world. The medallion's warmth spread through all of them, sharing fragments of knowledge accumulated over millennia. They saw how they could work within their existing roles to protect this secret, Sarah through her research, David through his photography, Emily through her explorations, Jake through his technical skills, and Lucas through his stories. The shepherd led them back through passages that seemed simpler now, their new understanding making the park's hidden pathways clear to them. As they emerged into daylight, they found themselves near their vehicles, though in a different location than where they'd left them. "The world can't know everything," David said, carefully storing his camera. "But we can help protect it, guide it, just as the Guardians have always done." The shepherd stood with them one last time, its form shimmering in the sunlight. They knew they would see it again, not as a mysterious guide, but as a fellow guardian of Yellowstone's most profound secrets. As they prepared to return to the outside world, each of them carried a piece of the ancient knowledge within them, along with the responsibility that came with it. They had entered Yellowstone as explorers, but would leave as protectors, part of an unbroken chain stretching back to the dawn of time. Dear viewers, we hope this extraordinary tale of discovery and wonder has captured your imagination. The mysteries of Yellowstone continue to inspire and amaze us all. If you've enjoyed this journey through one of America's most magnificent landscapes, please subscribe to our channel and leave a like on this video. Share your own Yellowstone experiences in the comments below, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to stay updated on more captivating stories that blur the line between reality and magic. Your support helps us continue bringing these unique narratives to life. Until our next adventure, remember, some of nature's greatest secrets are hidden in plain sight. The end.